We've been waiting a long time for this, but we're finally going to do this most requested video of the bumper car setup. First thing we're going to do is get this bumper car trailer leveled. It's quite complex. It's a long trailer and a lot of things change during the leveling. So when you put these sides down, the weight shifts when you open the doors. So we have to have all of that factored in. So it's a bit of a challenge, and it is very important that it be level. So right now, we are getting it unhooked off the tractor. We're going to put these jacks down, put the weight down, pull the tractor out, and then we're going to start pulling bubble levels out and take a look at what we need to do to this thing. I know for sure we're downhill, so we're going to have to set the rear end up probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches, and then we're going to drop this front down. So we'll go to it. One of the things about this trailer is it's 53, 54 feet long, and that's one thing, but the rear ends are all the way at the back, and the fifth wheel is all the way at the front. So as far as turning, it's quite a challenge moving this thing, because you take up every bit of road to make these corners and turns. Sometimes you have to get on a sidewalk to make a turn. The fifth wheel here it's barely covering. So again, that makes for a heck of a challenge to get this thing in any locations. So we've got a hydraulic system that will raise all 4 corners of the ride. So very handy for getting this thing leveled. Got 2 levers back here that control these 2 cylinders and 2 in the front. So we're going to drop this one down. Before we get too far, we're going to drop these airbags. There's no reason to have any air, even though we're going to be lifting this thing up. Sometimes the airbags will fight the trailer. They'll fight you leveling the trailer, or the pavement isn't quite level and the airbags are trying to keep you level. So we're going to dump this air out. And the levers here are going to lower these front jacks, put some weight on there. Then we're going to pull the weight off of these and drop the front down. We want to try, since we're top high here, we're going to try to get the front as low as can be, and then we're going to bring the rear end up to make level. So we're going to get this as low as we could possibly get it. That get us level?
That's perfect.
So the ride is a Majestic 1800 scooter, and it's a Euro model. And the Euro kind of refers to the trim package that it has. So it's got the nice stainless steel border with the lights and everything like that. A lot more complicated to put it on than some of the other models that just have the swing out scenery, but the look is amazing. This thing looks great when it's all set up and everything with that stainless steel. So the ride is made by Majestic in New Waterford, Ohio, and I think they made a fantastic bumper car arena. It's 1,800 square feet and 16 cars, so that accounts for 32 people getting on and off the ride every 4 to 5 minute cycle. So it's great for big events. When we do a big event, it has a lot of people, this thing just eats up the lines, and a lot of repeat people want to ride it over and over again. It's just a fun ride. So we've got a good level. So we got the front level first. That's our highest point. So we're going to work our way out from the highest point. We're going to flatten this thing out back. We got it level, but there's other things that are going to come into play. We have to support this whole trailer. There's marks where you're supposed to block the trailer, and blocking the trailer could be a little tricky. Because if you're blocking it and it's not bearing weight, then you've blocked it for really no reason, and there'll be movement. We don't want any movement. We like to keep our floor crack free. If the floor moves too much, you could develop cracks over time, and our floor is in great condition. It has no cracks. So we've got the back here level. We're going to support the back, and then we're going to try to work in blocks and make sure that in increments we lift the trailer up a little bit, slide the blocks in, make sure they're bearing weight, and we're going to go level the whole thing. Kind of going to squeeze all the flat and wrinkles out of it and get it perfectly flat. And in order to get that leveling done, we are going to need a lot of blocking. So we keep the blocking in our ticket booth, and we have got this thing full. So we could have one side of this thing 5-6 feet off the ground if we need to in the back to get level. But you've got just a tremendous amount of piers that go into leveling this floor. So the amount of blocking is insane for this ride, and we keep it all with us because we want to be prepared for any terrain, any setup, no matter where we go. So on all of the Majestic scooters, you have to lower the front, like the gooseneck has to come down, and it's pinned, and then there's like a redundant pin in the back, just a big steel bar that kind of sits in there. So if something were to happen to these pins here, the big bar holds it. Very good safety feature, because you don't want something like that coming down, you know, when you're driving it, transporting it. So we have that. The other Majestic scooters, a lot of them may have loading here and different features. This was ordered with a ticket booth on the front. I like it if we're ever doing a carnival or something, we can sell tickets out of it, and it does kind of make the ride look a little more interesting. We like that nostalgic look. So even though we're at a paid rental event, we have a ticket booth on there. It just looks kind of cool to have that look. So we're going to drop this thing down and level this, and there's also a lot of platforms and walkways and gates that have to go onto the front of this, but we'll do that later. You can't have 500 wooden blocks without having a cart. So we bring this cart with us because we've got to move these blocks all over this ride, and it makes it a lot quicker and easier. We can never have enough shimming. No matter what we do, we're always in need of shims. So we color code them. This is probably about 3/16 Luan, and we put some red paint on them. That way we know this is that. This is more of a 1/4 inch oak plywood. We paint that green. So we can pretty much cover whatever size we need with this, and we keep a lot of it, so we're constantly using shimming to get this ride right, and it's very important. This ride's got to be level, and it's got to be perfect. The workshop is such a nice feature to this thing. We've got everything we want inside there. We've got all of our tools, spare parts, inventory. This is the stairwell that I'm bringing out here now. It pins onto the back. And we spend a lot of time in the workshop. Every time we need something, it's in there. We've got switches, sensors, we've got all of our contactors. The floor consists of a system of beams that come out. Very important that these beams be leveled and they come out. They're all labeled where to block them, which I think is good because consistency is important. So the manufacturer tells you exactly where to block these things, and they have a decal on each one. And we always try to stay, providing that the terrain allows. Sometimes you need to move your block a little bit to get across something, overcome something, but it's definitely a good system. Some 2x4s. Okay, bring it down. That's it. So lots of parallel bars. One of the biggest things here is if you're not square, nothing's going to work. So we've got a squaring bar that goes on the back, and we're going to put that in now. That's going to get our first bar square, and then all of these long bars are connected with like a stringer bar that holds them together, and that squares the whole floor. Coming in, or is you good? So right here, we like for the top two to be perpendicular. So sometimes we have to move our stack and twist it so that our top two will be perpendicular, and that's for strength. I also try to build them in the shape where the bottom is larger and it tapers to the top. It's very important because when the cars are going back and forth on the floor, they're still moving things around, and if your blocking isn't right, you will end up kicking, shim pieces out or anything like that. So stability is super important here. So I'm leveling this first corner, and we're going to run a string line down. We're going to level the other corner, and then we'll use the string and levels to get this floor flat.
Up just a little bit, like.
Up?
No, now it's too far up.
Really?
No. Never mind. Keep going up.
Here, I gotta get this in, see if this helps you. Getting ready to unfold the floor. For travel, if that floor ever came loose, it would be a bad thing. So Majestic put these big anchor bolts in here, and they sandwich the whole bifolding floor all up against the trailer tight. So it wouldn't matter if a hinge failed, if anything went wrong, that floor is not going anywhere with these big bolts. We keep them really tight, so they're hard to get off. So we usually use a couple cheater bars to loosen them up, and even at that, they are super tight. And we feel good riding down the road knowing that the floor is not going anywhere. There's a lot of pieces that are stored on this floor. There's ramps, railings. These are the walk boards that hold the scenery up, and all of that secures onto this floor. So it ends up being the heaviest moving component of the whole ride is this floor. So having those big bolts in there to secure it makes us feel good when we drive. Lowering the floor consists of, it's a 12-volt winch. We have a 12-volt system on this ride. And it means that you don't have to hook power to the ride. When you get somewhere, you don't have to have a generator. So we could set this whole ride up on 12-volt battery, that's a huge plus. So Mike is up top. He has a remote control for that winch, and slowly we're going to let this floor slide out. It has rollers when it makes contact, and it will fold out onto our bracing underneath, and it'll all be one piece. So to get the floor in the right position for lowering, they're pulling out, and that gets it started. Once they get the floor on the rollers and they get it pulled out, it'll roll out by itself. For transport, the floor goes up against the trailer, and there are these blocks that have to be removed, and it keeps the floor straight up against the trailer so nothing rubs. So those come off just to operate the ride, and they're strictly racking to go down the road. The columns are all up. Those are going to support the what we call the catwalks that go around the outside. So it's those long aluminum boards, and they're on insulators. So the top of each of these risers here, it has an insulator pad, and then at the very top is the part that's going to be electrified. So when you're putting your R keys in, you want to make sure that everything is flat. You don't want an R key sticking in too far, or a pin going in further than it needs to, because that could short out the ceiling. This ride has a short detector, so it wouldn't really be a major catastrophe. It would just shut the ride down when you went to push the start button. So that's a whole nother thing of checking for shorts before we run the ride. But for right now, we're going to get all these risers in place, and then they're going to start putting the walk boards. I am told that there's a rough terrain forklift around here that we might be able to use. That kind of saves everybody's back, because those big boards, they get heavy and they're awkward. You got to maneuver them into place and pin them, and you have to hold all these bottom risers. So if we find a forklift, we're going to grab it. Or, you know what? Kevin, right there. We're setting up. You can zoom. the car is set up, you have to put these pulls in. These are called stinger pulls. It goes down into a contact, and this is what supplies the bumper car with power. And we call these duck bills. Goes in here, touches the ceiling, the connection goes through here and down into the stinger pole, which is insulated, and it goes down and plugs into a post that transfers the power. So right here, and then the spring holds the tension up to the ceiling. So what matters when you make this connection right here is it goes through a bushing, rubber bushing. You squeeze this down, and then you tighten up this collar on the top, and it holds this firmly. What happens is if you're not paying attention, you're not putting this in straight, you end up putting it in sideways, and it doesn't land on the post. And that could cause not just a loose connection and a car that won't operate, it could short out. It could blow fuses and all kinds of bad things. So we always are very careful about the way we put these in. So that was a successful connection, but it can go worse. And this is not something that you can see from on top. This car is tipped so you can see what's inside. But what can happen here is when I'm putting this in, it could end up going to the side like this. And you think that you've got it bottomed out, but it's really not. So it's very important to make seat down like that and gets a good connection. So that's one side. The other side of the electricity goes through this wire brush here, and it makes contact with the aluminum floor, and this is what gets you your positive and negative. It also goes through this control box. There's lights on the bumper cars that run off that. Then you have the gas pedal is up in the front on the other side, and that runs a relay. It's like a contactor, and it will occasionally go bad, so that may be a cause for a bumper car not working. There's micro switches inside the gas pedal that go bad. When it comes to high traffic and high volume going through these rides, they take a beating. So there's a lot of components that we always have to keep track of. The brushes are here for the motor, and the brushes always need to be kept clean. There's hair, lint, dust that gets on all these things that has to be clean. We have an air compressor, and we'll blow these things off. We'll spray certain components with WD-40, contact cleaner, everything to keep them clean and keep them functioning. We also have a big selection of micro switches, contactors, just about anything that can go wrong. There's a circuit breaker back here that needs to be kept track of. That's a 30 amp circuit breaker. Those do occasionally go bad, and that will shut the car down too. So the underside of these things, there's a lot of mechanics, a lot of things, a lot of maintenance that keeps them going good. And we try to do our best to keep these things in tip-top condition. So Sarah is putting in our keys up here, and not just putting them in the scenery part, but she's also checking to make sure that the catwalks are pinned, that we didn't leave something out. Putting it together, going around, everyone's lifting and pulling on things, it's easy to leave a few out. So while she does that, she's also checking the top, make sure everything's keyed in. We don't want any problems, and it's a great time to do that. Now, one of the critical parts here about putting these R keys in the scenery is there is an insulator up here. The catwalk and the ceiling are energized with DC voltage, and it's about 400 amps worth of power. So it would be messy if the power got into something else. You could have arcs, fuses blown, and all kinds of chaos, and especially unsafe situations. So it's very important that the R keys that go in through here are not making contact from here up to the top. because if they do, you've got a direct short and the bumper cars won't work, and that's another thing that she's checking. So there's so much to look at, and this is a very critical point where it's very easy to forget an R key, and it's very easy for someone to accidentally put one in where it's causing a short, and it could take you forever to find that short later on because there's so many R keys through this whole thing. So putting them in with care and re-inspecting over and over again is what we like to do, because then when we push the button to start this thing later on, everything just comes alive and everything works the way it should. The cars we have in here are the GT1 model. I think it's a nice classic looking car. Seats 2 people. Driver's side is right side, so that's where the gas pedal is located, and the steering wheel. Different things that these offer, that Majestic bumper cars offer, are these bars that come up over. So you don't have to have the seat belt going over the shoulder or any of that diagonal stuff going on that doesn't properly restrain a child. There is a height requirement on this ride, and the height requirement is intended to keep the child in the proper place in the event somebody gets bumped. So you don't want the child to hit their face on the bumper, because that's not restraining them properly if their face takes the blow of a bump or an impact. So that comes in handy. That's a good thing to have. We like it. It's very easy to inspect and make sure everybody's got their lap bars down before operation, and it's very simple for people to get out of the cars. It's just lift the lap bars up. That's something kind of exclusive to Majestic. When you buy bumper cars from Majestic, they make sure you have that stuff on there. It's one of the features, and I really like it. Also important is this cushion here in the steering wheel. Obviously, you're getting bumped, and you don't want someone's face going into a hard steering wheel, so they put a cushion in the middle, and all that is safety. It keeps people from getting hurt when they're riding the bumper cars. The speed that we have, the voltage that comes out of the ceiling is calibrated to be within factory parameters. It's the setting that we have it on, and it makes sure that people don't go too fast, the bumps aren't too violent and everything. I think we have it calibrated where it's just right, so it's very fun and it's very safe. So we don't have any whiplash complaints, we don't have any people getting banged up or anything. Allows for a nice, fun family ride for everybody. Also, another factor is the air pressure that is in this tire around the bumper. It's very important that they not be inflated too hard, because then the car will have a recoil where it'll bump back and then throw you the other way, and it's just a little too violent. So we pay careful attention to the inflation of these rings and make sure that we don't have too much or too little. We tend to keep them on the light side, though still within factory parameters, because I feel like it absorbs a little bit better, and people are less likely to get that additional blow. So, and again, too little air, and you're going to bump fiberglass and you're going to crack the cars up. So everything's got parameters for a reason, and we try to stay within all the parameters.